Good morning. Today I want to present to you my research paper on deployed military families and how to help them communicate more effectively. I'd like for you to consider whether or not any of these tools might be effective for you in your everyday communication, and if you are a military spouse or were a military spouse, whether or not there were some that you did not utilize or did not know about that would be more effective than the tools that you used. I began my research by talking to a number of individuals who are military spouses, from the enlisted all the way through officers. And I asked them about their stress levels and how they dealt with stress. I know personally I experienced a variety of different types of stress when my own husband was deployed. And while I don't get an opportunity to go too deeply into their particular situations for privacy reasons, I will share with you that I actually ended up hospitalized when my husband was deployed because I thought that I was dealing with my own stress effectively and that his deployment was not truly affecting me the way that other people were being affected. Unfortunately, what I realized is that I wasn't utilizing my resources, and that had I gone to the counseling that was available, utilized some of the other resources that I'll talk about, I would not have ended up 9 times out of 10 in that situation. The next piece that I speak about is balancing communication and technology. There are many ways of communicating today with our spouses when they're abroad and deployed. One in particular that everybody seemed to love is email. The other is Skype. Of course, there's Twitter, and the ever-present snail mail, which a number of people still use because they find it very romantic, or they really just want to ship something to their service member. What we found was for those who, like I said, love to have email available to them, it's not just a matter of how you utilize the technology, but understanding when to email, what to say in your emails, how often should you email, what are your expectations in terms of response to the emails. And what we found for most people is that they really expect or desire for their spouses to communicate immediately, but that's not always possible. So we gave tools for setting up an email account so that you can send messages on a regular basis without necessarily being at your computer because you're out in the field. The surprising thing was that many people choose not to communicate while they're deployed. Sometimes it's a matter of just saying, I want some time away and I want some free time to do some of the things that I may not do when my spouse is around. And other times it was a matter of the service member deciding that it was crucial to the mission that they not have distractions around them. And they felt that the spouse would create distractions. Now, some of the pre-deployment strategies would be to really communicate with one another and say what's going to be most effective. Get some third-party counseling so that you can discuss whether or not email is the best way to go, so that you might understand what type of deployment your service member is going on, so that you can understand how much communication is going to truly be available to them, and then deciding whether or not it's going to be communication surrounding the children, communication surrounding the family, extended family members, and setting up a support system that would be able to buffer some of the communication. If you're if you as a spouse have set up the ability to have your car worked on and have someone mowing your lawn on a regular basis, maybe even having a housekeeper come in, communicating these things before they leave can help in terms of not emailing your frustration to them while they're gone. When I spoke to psychologist Dr. Jorge Concepcion, one of the things that he mentioned most about email is that Most people are truly looking for someone to spend a great deal of time communicating back and forth. And service members don't have that kind of time when they're out and deployed. So he recommended that you get therapy ahead of time so that you can understand the communication style of the spouse and the service member. Mainly because, as he states, men and women do communicate differently. And while men have fewer words, not always, there are some men who do have a number of words to use per day. But while men generally have fewer words to express their emotions and describe what has happened with their day, women love detail and they will go in more depth in order to get their point across. But if you understand the communication style of your spouse, then being able to communicate is that much easier. For example, if you know that your spouse is one who would enjoy receiving an email that just has one or two little words of thinking of you, or it's your birthday and they send an email that says, I'm happy birthday, sorry I can't be with you, but I'm thinking of you and you'll have something special in a couple of days. Just something short and to the point. Then you recognize that that's just the way that that service member, he or she, handles things. On the other hand, if your spouse is one who needs a great deal of detail, you might spend some time actually writing a letter to them or emailing someone else the letter so that when they deliver the flowers to them for their birthday, they deliver a letter along with it. It's a communication that's very short and simple and sweet and to the point, but it helps a lot, especially for the spouse who is at home having to now deal with being a single parent when at one time, or a single spouse, they might be they might not have children, when they are used to having a two-parent household. It lets them know that you care. It lets them know that you'll utilize that support system. For spouses, the additional support systems that are available are the FRG, the Family Readiness um, group, which is an internet-based group that can help in terms of finding people in the community who have the same concerns as you or who are dealing with matters with their children. There's Operation Purple for the children, and Operation Purple offers a number of camps and retreat and type of programs that will allow you an opportunity to send the children to camp for a 2-week period, give them some education and coping skills for handling the deployment, and by the time they get back, hopefully you will have had an opportunity to refresh a little. There are other resources that are available at for example, here at the Fleet Readiness Center, that are counseling opportunities so that you can go in and talk about the level of stress that you're experiencing, and it's not something that's recorded in the files so that it doesn't go against the service member, but it gives you an opportunity to do a support group. When you're handling issues with the children, DODEA, the Department of Defense Education Assistance Team or agency, has put together a program with teachers to assist them in understanding the various problems of deployed children and how their behavioral issues could be directly related to the type of deployment that the spouse or the service member is on. It gives them a number of opportunities to go to training, to work directly with parents so that they can help the parents understand how to cope with some of the issues and concerns that are going on. And it also gives the children, through a program called AVID, which is for the advancement of children who are those middle performing children, those children who might have slacked off because they're dealing with a deployment. It gives them an opportunity to sit with counselors and members who have been trained in helping them advance through the education system and decide whether or not they want to go off to college or to pursue a particular career. And then what they do is to help them by giving them the resources to look into that career. This really helps parents who, once again, who have become single parent households and might now be dealing with 3 or 4 children on their own and not have the opportunity or the time to really focus on the high school student. Reunification is another area that I deal with in this research paper. And Dr. Concepcion talks a great deal about doing reunification in a way that's a slow process that helps everyone to understand what is expected, how long the process of reunification will take, puts you in a therapeutic situation so that the spouse who may experience some jealousy when the service member returns or vice versa, because when the service member returns, they're the good guy who has not had to be the disciplinarian. But when the service member returns, they may also experience jealousy because you've built a relationship that they don't have, a bond that they don't have with the child because they've had to move and to stay deployed for that period of time. So he really recommends getting some therapy. There are classes that are offered to your service member while he's away so that when he returns, the reunification process can be that much easier. And they help him understand how to communicate about taking the finances over, about enjoying the children's educational process and getting involved in that process. Helps him understand post-traumatic stress syndrome, and helps you on the other side. Their classes offered to help the spouse handle the reunification process as well. The reason that I decided that I didn't want to do this towards only the spouses clubs is because many of the members of the spouses clubs that I interviewed said that they really didn't become involved in those clubs until after about the second or third deployment, and that they thought this information would be more useful for the general audience of military spouses, because by the time you've joined a spouses club, you've already created the support system. You've already begun to understand the first reunification that you've had to do. And it becomes a moot point to get research like this because though it can give you some advice and information, you've experienced it. So in conclusion, what I found is that the biggest part of communicating, of course, for anybody, is to understand your mate. But in particularly for military families who are experiencing deployments, it is a matter of understanding your mate, understanding these resources that are available to you, utilizing the resources even when you think you can handle the situation, setting up a support group with your family, your friends, and in particularly military spouses who have been through what you're dealing with, and setting up a support system with your education, with your educators, in particular, especially with your middle school and high school children. Elementary school children can be affected, but your middle school and high school children more so. I hope that you have enjoyed my research and that you will have an opportunity to utilize some of it if you are a military spouse. And I wish you the best on your projects as well. Thank you.